Welcome back to me not being able to explain anything well. This is part 2 of episode 5. Let's go. I love how Sarah enters this scene by slamming Matteo's locker shut. I know my locker metaphor is a little bit flimsy, but hear me out again. I think Sarah slamming the locker shut, which I said before symbolizes how Matteo wants to be known by someone, right? Her slamming it shut is a great way to symbolize how she is trapping him in this moment. She really is. He has no choice but to just kind of stand there and take this and shut down. He is not going to open up right now, obviously. He's not ready to talk about his sexuality, and he sure as hell isn't going to do it in the middle of school, right? So her slamming the locker shut is the same thing as him shutting his damn mouth and not being able to say anything because he can't. He's trapped.
Ich wollte das nicht.
That's the only thing he says. And it sounds so genuine, it sounds so real. It's the only thing that he can manage to get out in this conversation because he's so caught off guard, he feels so trapped. He, once again, is not ready to talk about this. He's not ready to talk about the real reason why he broke up with Sarah, why he was with Sarah in the first place. And he knows he's in the wrong anyway. So, I don't know, I love that. I didn't mean it. He really didn't. Still fucked up. I'm not saying he's a saint.
Dass du mit Mädchen nichts anfangen kannst.
Sarah, please. There was no need. There was just no need. So this is yet another clip where reality is crashing down on Matteo. This is not a happy episode, really. Damn. I feel like every clip in this episode is just getting progressively worse, and reality is getting harder and harder to cope with. And that bliss of the weekend and that alternate reality with David is getting harder and harder to hold on to. And right here, Matteo slams his body into the lockers, like really hard, and then slides down to the floor. And you see him falling under that weight and faltering under all of that weight of reality. And we saw him do this in episode 2, where he just falls to the floor because he can't hold up his body weight anymore. Reality is coming in hard for him. That shot is so cool. I love that. He looks up into the skylight like he's wishing to escape. He is yearning for an escape right now. He wishes he could just fly the fuck away from reality. And this also connects back to David's art and also to episode 2. There seems to be like a lot of connections to episode 2. But when they spend time alone at Matteo's apartment and they walk there together, there's a clip of birds flying away. And that definitely connects to David's first Instagram post, which was a bird without one of its wings. So I think this is Matteo wishing he could fly away from his problems, but also probably fly to David, to this safe place that he has found for himself. Being with David is the closest thing that he has to escaping and flying away and being someone else, which is exactly what he wants right now, because he's just been hit with reality and hit with these shitty decisions that he's been making and this mess. I do want to talk just about this first shot of this clip because it's from the ground, right? The last shot was of the sky. It was looking up at the sky. It was Matteo wishing he could fly away, be with David, enter back into this fantasy with him. So you go from that to a shot from the ground, which is really cool. This date is Matteo's escape. This is the time when he gets to be himself. He's been hit with reality a couple of times since the last time he was with David, but now he is grounded again. He has flown away from reality and he's touched down back in this alternate reality where he can be himself with David. So I think that's why they go from a shot of the sky to a shot from the ground. So a big metaphor that I've been using to talk about this episode is thinking about it in terms of fantasy and reality. And I did mention it in episode 4 as well, and it's definitely a huge thing in this clip. This is where it all comes to fruition. David and Matteo are living in this fantasy together. Everything is perfect and everything is blissful, but David is still hiding something pretty big for someone who he wants to be in a romantic relationship with. It's a pretty big deal and he's hiding. So that's why it is a fantasy. It can't be completely real. And as far as David knows, Matteo is still with Sarah, so it's fine. Like, they're both hiding things. They're both not completely integrating this relationship into reality yet. And this clip shows even more of that fantasy. And then it breaks that fantasy. So let's actually fucking watch it. Shall we?
Was ist hier?
King of flirting. So one thing that this date definitely shows us is that they are once again very physically playful with each other. They are already super comfortable play fighting and touching each other, and it all feels very natural. They just have that level of comfort with one another where they can tease each other physically and it's all good and it's not awkward. Their bodies just kind of know what to do. They're in sync. This entire montage makes it seem like these two have known each other for years because they're already that comfortable with one another, which is really nice. But of course, I'm gonna have to ruin it, and I'm gonna have to look deeper and talk about how this montage is also a great example of how they are still in a fantasy. It's not just a honeymoon phase, it's literally a fantasy. And they're playing make-believe. So here, they're playing ping pong, but they're not actually playing ping pong. Pretending like they're playing ping pong, they're pretending like they're sword fighting. They're not actually doing either one of those things. So I talked about in the pool scene how they played pretend and how they acted like they were underwater when they actually weren't. And I said that that was the first clue that this is David's fantasy. That and the fact that they went to the abandoned building in the first place, right? That was also David's idea. That was also part of David's fantasy. And this is more of that. They're not actually playing ping pong. They're not actually sword fighting. There's even more evidence later in this clip, which I think is super interesting. But just to start with those two, I don't think you can ignore how those all connect. These are all ways in which David is still kind of keeping everything at bay. He even used coordinates to invite Matteo to this date. Like, it's very fantastical, very romantic, cinematic. It's not something that actually happens in reality, and it's not just a honeymoon phase, like I said, because they are hiding things. They're having this secret relationship that no one knows about. As far as David knows, Matteo is still with Sarah, so it's not real. It's not completely reality yet. Nothing is real, nothing is scary yet. I love how they sit down in sync. I've talked about many, many, many times that they are in sync, and there are even more examples of it later. Like, some of the gestures that they do are in sync, some of the ways that they walk and sit down are in sync, even some facial expressions that they do, even later in the season, are in sync as well. And this is mirroring. This is actually like a scientific thing that happens when you're close with someone and when you feel, I don't want to say vibes. When you feel like a connection with them, you start to actually mirror how the person looks and acts and moves. They literally do that here. They both sit down at the exact same time. They both kind of lean back and put their legs up a little bit. It's really cool. And this is where the bubble is burst. This has been simmering throughout the episode so far. Reality has been right under the surface of every clip, and now it is burst. From this point on, there is a rift between Matteo and David. This is it. This is literally it. Their alternate reality, their fantasy, has been destroyed because Matteo broke up with Sarah. Because Matteo is making his intentions known, that he wants this to be real. He doesn't want this to just exist in this fantasy land. He wants to be with David. Now it's all on David. The ball is in David's court. David is officially the only one who is holding anything back. Matteo has gotten rid of the real barrier preventing him from being with David in reality. So David starts pulling back hardcore. As soon as Mateo says that he's broken up with Sarah, the energy shifts. It really does. And Mateo doesn't really notice it, but David starts kind of breaking eye contact a little bit more. He backs away from the kiss, which could definitely be like he doesn't want to kiss in public. It could be that, and it could also be that he doesn't want to kiss Mateo right now because he knows that he's going to pull back. He knows that this bubble has been burst and he can't put it back together. And I do think it's a combination of the two, because even when Mateo invites David over to a private place, David still is like, no. He still pulls back. So it's not just that David doesn't want to kiss a guy in a public place. It is also because that rift is there. Their fantasy is over. He even asks about Sarah, which is a really interesting way to show that rift between them. Yeah, there's a little bit of tension there where Mateo thinks that David is trying to make him feel bad, and you can feel the tension as the audience. You're like, wait, like why is this kind of sad now? Why is this, what's happening? And I think the way that Mateo reacts to that shows that Mateo feels bad about it and that he is guilty, because he immediately uses it as ammunition against himself and assumes that that's what David is doing as well. I'm going to ignore that ridiculous line and talk about the fact that David plays an acoustic version of Take Me to Church rather than the studio version. Maybe David just prefers this acoustic version, sure. Maybe it just makes more sense for the scene. Maybe it would have been weird if they played the studio version based on how quiet this part has been and how tense it is. Which I agree, the acoustic version does fit a lot better for the tone shift. But I think it also fits in with the fantasy. I really do. It's not the studio version. It's not the full version of the song. It's an acoustic, stripped back version of it. This is another way that David is not sharing everything with Mateo. Their relationship is incomplete, just like how the song itself is incomplete. This version of the song is incomplete. And I do think this has significance in this way because they use the studio version in another moment later in the season. And that's why it made me think about why they specifically use the acoustic version now. So I think it does make sense. I think it's another way that David is pulling back and not allowing himself to fully be with Mateo, especially right now. This kind of feels like a little bit of a goodbye, almost. And it definitely looks like it, the way that David is looking right now. He looks scared. He looks melancholy. He's like, shit, this is it. Like, this is literally it. And Mateo still doesn't really notice it. We see that Mateo is still listening to the song, which reminds me of when he went to go watch Only Lovers Left Alive when he was feeling lonely. I think this is another way for him to still feel connected to David even after their date. Another way for him to hold on to that bliss that he feels when he's with him. I think he does look into the camera there also, like, very quickly. I don't really know why. I'm gonna be honest. Because he's definitely not in crisis, that's for sure. Maybe because he's happy? I don't know. I really don't know. Someone tell me. And he looks so happy when he says that he and David are having a thing. He also definitely looks into the camera there as well for, once again, a split second. Definitely could have been a mistake. That one looks like a mistake, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Part of me thinks that Michelangelo is too good of an actor to just casually look into the camera for no reason, like on mistake, by mistake. But I do think this one makes more sense than the one that I literally just said. I have no idea why he does that. This one, it kind of feels like a nod to the audience because he's telling Hans, yeah, me and David are having a thing. It makes sense for him to kind of look into the camera and be like, yeah, I know you guys already know. All right, I need to fill in my friend, okay? He's making eye contact with us in a knowing way, acknowledging that we already know this information. And then the rest of this conversation is Mateo being extremely clumsy with his words. And not just that, just being straight up ignorant. We've seen already that Mateo isn't great at verbalizing complex stuff, and that is complicated even more when you throw in the internalized homophobia that is still a thing. So it makes sense that he would say stupid shit like this and just kind of keep going too. And he keeps trying to be like, well, I'm explaining it wrong, like I'm saying it like this is what I'm trying to say, but he keeps making it worse. And that's very, very in character for Mateo to do this, unfortunately. Just trip his way into some homophobic shit. He starts breaking eye contact, stumbling over his words. He's like, oh shit, I'm not saying this right. I know I'm not saying this right. He even moves away from the bed as kind of like a nervous tick, like, oh shit, I'm fucking this up. I know I'm fucking this up. I just like the way that they block this scene with him standing up and changing his position once he gets nervous and uncomfortable.
Diese Leute riskieren ihr Leben, weil sie es einfach nicht mehr aushalten, sich zu verstecken.
Tell him. Yes, I love when Hans walks up to him and gets so close to his face. The way that this is framed. I love the coloring too. It's kind of orange and reddish, so you can feel like that tension and disappointment even from Hans, like he's been betrayed, really. And you can feel all of that based on how close he gets to Mateo. He's not letting him escape from this, which is good. He should call him out, and he does, and he gets right up in his face to do it. Mateo tried to extinguish a bit of the tension by getting up off of the bed and creating distance between them, but Hans, he said, no, you're not getting away with this. And even though Hans is shorter than Mateo, he really is the authority here. And it's framed that way too. Mateo is the one who can't really look at him and who keeps looking down. And Hans is the one who walks away when he is done with this conversation. It is on his terms when he exits. I really love that. Your night is about to get even worse though, so maybe you should just fall asleep. Trust me. Just go to sleep right now. Just go to sleep. Alright, so this is the first text that David sends. So the first text elicits, firstly, frustration. We see Mateo throw another thing again because he's frustrated. But then it also elicits action from Mateo. He immediately goes to see David. And the song that plays, I'm not going to talk about the lyrics because I don't really think there's anything there. But it's called 5% Tint by Travis Scott. Just the way that it sounds is interesting to me because it has that intense bass, it has the staccato piano, it has this pitched down devilish laugh, kind of. And I think the way that it sounds really complements the emotions that Mateo is feeling here. There's frustration there, but then there's also kind of a confidence. Like, I feel like this is a song that I would listen to when I want to feel cooler than I actually am, right? So the fact that they play this song here not only elicits that frustration, but also kind of a confidence and an assuredness, because Mateo is like, I don't know what's happening right now, but I'm going to go over to David's house and I'm going to figure it out, okay? He looks pretty confident, actually. Whether it's a false confidence, he's just kind of putting on a facade, or not. He doesn't look nervous here. He looks sure of himself, to me. He goes to David's house immediately. This is the same clip. There is no time that passes between Mateo getting that text and going out to go see David and talk about it with him and try to get some answers. And I do think the laugh, the pitched down laugh, could be interesting because he's confident that there's at least a chance that it will be okay. There's still that laugh in the background that's kind of telling the audience that no, it's not. It's laughing at him. It's laughing at his confidence. So the song ends right before he knocks on the door, and if we are connecting his confidence to the song, it makes sense that it ends there, because the way he knocks on the door does not give the impression that he is confident. That is a very nervous knock. And it makes sense because we know that Matteo is kind of an anxious person and a nervous person. So I think if he did have confidence, it was because he was trying to calm himself down and trying to put on a facade of confidence to make him feel better. But that kind of all disappears a little bit once he actually gets in front of David's door. And he really tries. He's active. This entire thing is Matteo being active and fighting for what he wants. He's not ready to just give up on this relationship. He's not going to be passive. He even looks up to try to see if he can see a light coming from David's room or anything, which is a really nice little detail. He's still not ready to give up, but then he gets the second text and he has no choice. So the second text elicits not frustration but rage. He throws something again, throws his phone, and it shatters completely. And then, unlike the first text, which brought action along with it, this one is just defeat. First it's rage and then defeat. The first text was frustration and then action because Matteo believed there was still a chance, there was still something he could do to fix this, but now he's back to defeat. When he has been so active, he has fought for this so much, he has been active in ways that he had never been before, but now there's literally nothing he can do. And this translation says, I'm not into you, but I've also seen other translations that say, I don't want anything from you. Whichever one it is, whichever one is more correct, they're both pretty harsh, and they both make Matteo feel that same defeat. But that second one, I don't want anything from you, that is even more harsh. Damn. And there's a really cool detail here of the train in the background. When he throws the phone, there's a shrill, echoing sound of the brakes of the train. And I really love that. It sounds like an alarm. It's really harsh. And then, this is such a cool audio transition. You hear the natural train sounds, like the horn of the train. Is that what it's called? Train horn? I don't know why that sounds wrong. That natural sound fades into the song. It's so seamless. It's absolutely beautiful.
With your hand.
And those same train noises continue while the song plays, which creates this perfect, haunting, ambient noise. It's so beautifully done. This song, dude. This song. Okay, I'm going to talk about the song. It's called Second World by HVOB. And the lyrics. Buckle up, y'all. With your hand, you kept the real world outside. I hear you, and you hear me. Through the songs we cannot be. I draw away out of this mess, and it leads into a second world. A world where you are free. So this directly references that fantasy that I've been going on about for so long and stumbling my way through trying to explain. And this basically says it. With your hand, you kept the real world outside. David and Matteo were living in an alternate reality. They were the only people that existed. They were using themselves to ground each other in this fantasy. And I also think this is more proof as to why David showed him the acoustic version of Take Me to Church. When the song says, I hear you and you hear me through the songs we cannot be. David hears elements of he and Matteo's romance, I guess, in Take Me to Church. But it's not enough to be the regular studio version, the complete studio version. It's still incomplete. And I think that last part of drawing away out of the mess into a second world where you are free, I think you could see that from either Matteo or David's perspective. If we're looking at it from Matteo's perspective, I think this is Matteo wishing so badly that he could find a way to get out of this and a way to fix this. He wishes he could just create another alternate reality in which David felt free enough to be with him. Or David is the one who is drawing a way out of this mess. And I think you could see that as him writing the text. David thinks he's kind of created this mess by letting Matteo get too close, and the only way for Matteo to be free is to pretend like he doesn't even like him and that he doesn't want anything from him. So either way, fucking depressing, really sad. No matter how you look at it, these lyrics are so tragic. Perfect though, really perfect. This song is gorgeous. And I doubted Matteo looking into the camera before, but he absolutely does it here. And this goes with the previous theme of him looking into the camera when he's in crisis. And him breaking his phone is also a great way to set up Matteo's lowest point, which is in the next episode. Because since he's broken his phone, he could completely drop off the face of the earth if he wanted to. Not having a way to contact anyone enables his horrible coping mechanism of isolation. Oh, that shot is so beautiful. I love that shot of Matteo just letting it out, letting his feelings out. And he can't even move either, he's frozen in place. And then a train goes by. I love how that's framed. I love the contrasting colors too. There's this red light on him and the train lights are green. And I think that train racing by is symbolizing how, first of all, his thoughts are racing. He doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Everything is crashing down around him. Everything was so great and now suddenly it's all ruined. And then also his desire to escape and run away from everything and everyone. He had an escape with David. He did. He was using it as an escape this entire episode. He kept being brought back to reality a little bit, but he always had the picture from David to ground him. He always had the song to remind him of David. He had something to fall back on when he wanted that escape. But now that's been taken away from him. And he's left with this intense desire to escape, but no one to escape with. And he's left alone, which is the very thing that he said he fucking hated in the first clip. Now that I've made all of your days worse, that's all I have to say about this episode. I'll be back on Wednesday for episode 6. It is my favorite episode. I'm very excited to talk about it. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.